Today I am here with Tim Kaufman, otherwise known to the plant-based world as the Rantings of a Former Fat Man. And I have to tell you, I just love your website. It's amazing because you're so positive on your website. Your mantra, wow, change your diet, change your life, eat plants, move your body. All you got to do is a little more than you did yesterday. That about sums up what we do. Amazing. So, Tim, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything that you do. And funny story about that mantra, it actually was kind of an accident kind of thing because someone asked me if I could sum up, the best advice I could give them in one line.
Uh-huh.
It just kind of rolled off my tongue, and it kind of stuck, and now it's like everywhere. It's on shirts and everything, so it's kind of neat. But
Excellent.
yeah.
Well done. Well, you were diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS, in your 20s, which put you in a lot of pain. Okay, first of all, what is this? And tell us about this experience.
So I didn't know about it until I got into my 20s. Like I thought it was just like normal. Like I thought like dislocating, like because I was always twisting my ankle, kind of blowing out my knee. Everything kind of moved more than it should, but I didn't know it because that's how I grew up. So the short of it is, as I got into different work, I did manual labor, and I kind of grew up on a farm. But when I started working like over my head, my shoulder started dislocating, and it actually dislocated to the point where I would sneeze and it would actually fall out of me.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
powerful sneeze you got there.
Yeah, and so everything just got looser and looser as I got older. So in my 20s, it was really becoming, debilitating, really. Like I couldn't do my job the right way. It was little stupid things like picking up keys off of a counter. Sometimes I would dislocate. And so I went to see a doctor about my shoulder, and they were going to perform the surgery called an arthroplasty, which basically they take all the tendons and ligaments and they kind of pull them out and they kind of fold them and then stitch them back together to kind of tighten the capsule up. And when they opened me up and they got in there, they started pulling things and they realized that it was like bubble gum. It just kept stretching and stretching and stretching. So then the way I scarred, and they put two and two together and they diagnosed me with this disease called Ehlers-Danlos.
What
So
is this?
it affects, it's a genetic mutation that affects the collagen in your body. So the kind of the glue that holds your body together.
Right?
So, every like things are like even scar tissue. I get like these fish mouths when I scar. It just like oozes bubble gum out and then scars. Actually, I'm super fortunate because the type I have just affects my joints and some of my skin. But it can be really, really deadly. Like my doctor one time told me that they were doing surgery on this one EDS patient, and it was like suturing ice cream when they went to stitch her back up. So like my organs are fine. I have a few like side things from it, like the way my body cools itself is a little wonky and things like that. But for the most part, I'm healthy. I just grew up in pain, chronic pain, and some fatigue and hypermobile, like everything dislocated.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so when you went plant-based, did that help you?
It certainly helped a lot of the symptoms, but it's one of those things that, plant-based does a ton. And inflammation was key for me. I was always inflamed. And I think a lot of chronic conditions stem from inflammation. So, as far as the symptoms of EDS, 100% better. I mean, I still I'm dealing with an injury right now with it. I run about 10 miles and my ankle swells up like it doesn't even look like human. Like it looks like an alien. It's really weird. But the thing is now, like 2 hours later, all the inflammation goes away. Where before that will last weeks and weeks, and I'll be in crutches and canes and braces. As far as inflammation goes, 100% better. Pain, I'm not on any pain pills anymore. That kind of thing. I'm not on any medicine for it. But I mean, I still have it. My fingers and everything does really crazy stuff.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I know you've lost like a ton of weight. So what was your highest weight and like your, BMI? What was?
So I actually got so big that the doctor could not weigh me anymore. So we know I was over 400 pounds. For an interview we did with my doctor about 2 years ago, he said I was well over 400. I don't know what that means. So we'll just, we'll
A
call it I
lot.
lost 400 pounds, right? I was big. I was very heavy.
Well, how are
And
you tall or? I
no,
mean,
well, 5'10". I'm not tall at all. No.
okay. So wow. Do you know what your like BMI was at the highest or?
No, no clue, and nor did I care either. So I would have never remembered it anyways.
Okay. Well, what other health issues were you faced with besides the EDS?
So it kind of, well, first of all, I don't really know what happened first. I feel like I just woke up one day and I was over 400 pounds. I was an addict. I was an alcoholic. And I don't think I was suicidal, but at the same time, I knew there was a really good chance I wouldn't wake up in the morning. And I don't really know that I cared one way or another. So,
Mm.
but I feel like it just happened overnight. But I would say the addiction problems came first because after that surgery I talked to you about, I went out of the hospital that day with a big bottle of Lortabs or hydrocodone. And I had never taken painkillers before. I'd never taken any narcotics. And I can remember taking them, and it was the first time that like the edge was off my entire body. I mean, what typically would happen is if my shoulder would hurt, I could get that under control, ice it, whatever. I had a TENS unit that would actually put electrical shocks and kind of mess with the nerves. And if I could get that calmed down, then my knee would start hurting. If I could get that calmed down, then my hip. So it was just chasing. It wasn't one thing. So when I took painkillers, the idea of kind of taking the edge off of everything felt really, really good to me. It was a new feeling. And I really liked it. And so I just kept getting more and more painkillers. And if you know anything about narcotics, you build up a tolerance. So, and the doctor was working with me. I had a pain management doctor. And so, after we did the whole Lortab thing and that kind of ran its course, he was so concerned about how much acetaminophen I would take because it's a mix. That we were actually specialing order them with minimal acetaminophen so I could get more of the narcotic. And then when that ran its course, then we went to the Percocets. And then when that ran its course, we went up to the Oxys. And yeah, and then finally I went in, and this wasn't a thing back when I started doing this, but he said, I have this drug I want you to try called fentanyl. And now we know what fentanyl is now, but at the time, 20 years ago, no one knew what fentanyl was. They knew what heroin was, and fentanyl is actually, a significant amount stronger than heroin. And I didn't know, and so this was a transdermal patch. So basically I had a constant supply of fentanyl going into my veins 24/7. And through a period of, I'm guessing 5 or 10 years, it had escalated that I was on the max dose of fentanyl. And then along with all the breakthrough medicines, and I still wasn't sleeping at night. I would go days without sleeping, chronic pain. And then one day I stopped at the liquor store and I picked up a bottle of vodka. And it was probably the fastest slope that I had ever been down because I wasn't a drinker. I never went to bars. My wife and I got married like super young, 20 years old. And so I just started working. Like I didn't have time to be like all my friends and go out partying and drinking. So I never was introduced to the drinking scene, but I just wanted to go to sleep. So I found that fast food had that same opioid effect. And it's looking back, it almost sounds silly, but I would sit in the fast food line and get that like little excitement that the food's coming. I would get it, eat it, it would taste super good. And then 5 minutes later, the wrapper's laying on the seat, and I get that guilty feeling like that's it, like it's gone already. And the whole cycle starts over. Very similar to opioids. So at my worst, I mean, I was highly addicted to fast food four times a day, routinely. It wasn't just a thing. And then I always drank like right before bed. So maybe a 30-minute window. My worst, I would be on the max dose of fentanyl. I would take about 15 other pills, cyclobenzaprine, muscle relaxers, on top of all the other opioids for breakthroughs, plus the fentanyl, and I would drink an entire liter of vodka every single night. And
a liter of vodka? Oh
yeah,
my
and I
gosh.
didn't know that that was like a big thing. Like I would get it in those cheapo plastic, like 1.75
Yeah.
liters, and it wouldn't last me 2 nights. I'd have to go almost every night to get more. And I was drinking it in, like I say, literally 30-minute window.
Oh my
And it just
gosh.
became my norm. Like that's just what I did.
How long a period was this?
Years, my kidneys would shut down, and I knew what was happening. I knew that, I would get up to go to the bathroom and I couldn't go. And I knew exactly what was going on. But I don't know. You don't think, you're in that thing and you don't think about it.
Wow. Well, what did your doctor say to you along this whole journey?
Well, a lot of the pain, I was a very good manipulator. Like I knew what to say. I knew what to say to get sympathy. And my wife knew what was going on. I don't think she knew the whole thing, but she would go in there and say things like, I'm really concerned about, he's taking too much of this or this. And, the doctor's attitude was, I'm human and I want to be out of pain. So, I mean, that was part of the whole pain management thing. I mean, I think we just assumed that that was the rest of my life. That's how it was going to look. That's what it was going to be. At the same time, my blood pressure was 255 over 115.
Wow.
And so the complete opposite of what you would think being on all those narcotics and downers, basically. I mean, muscle relaxers are supposed to lower all that stuff. And here I'm at 255 over 115. So, I mean, for the doctor to start taking me off meds, that would have been very dangerous, I would think. But it was just my routine. And back to the interview thing that we did with him, it was very sobering sitting in the room hearing him say that every time I came in his office, I used to see him at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. He said that when he saw me walk in the waiting room without a wheelchair, it was like a super successful month. And this is in my 20s and, early 30s. So,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, so how did you learn about being plant-based, or, what made you change? What was your aha moment where the light bulb went click?
There wasn't one. And when I do my talks, I always wish I could say there was that one thing that kind of happened, and it didn't. To give you a little bit of backstory, this, you think, in my mind, like, this is it. This is the canes, the crutches. It was a very rare occasion when I didn't have braces on, when I wasn't in some sort of cane or crutch. And that was just life. I mean, that was, my kids saw that was dad, and my wife, but we talk about the physical aspect of having extra weight. And I think, it's easy for people to see, if I'm talking to someone and saying, well, this is what it's like to be 400 pounds. If you weigh 200 pounds, put 200 pounds of weight on your back and walk upstairs, or, pick keys off the floor, or get in and out of an airplane, whatever that looks like. And I think that people kind of get that physical thing, how much stress would be on their knees and whatnot. But when we talk about the emotional weight that comes along with that 400 pounds, it's a whole different thing. Like, I was supposed to provide and protect Heather, and here she's got 2 kids. She's outside mowing the lawn, and I'm sitting in a recliner. Well, there's 2 toddlers running around the backyard, and she's trying to mow the lawn and take care of everything. Emotionally, it was a very, very hard place to be. And obviously, I would never call myself depressed, but I mean, how could you not be depressed in that, state of mind?
Yeah.
And that part was super hard. It was super hard. But again, I think that, I just justified everything because I had this disease, and this is just the hand I was dealt, and I was just playing it out best I could.
Right.
So we had this whole, we had this thing where we're trying to get kids. My kids were probably middle school-ish. So, softball, basketball, that kind of thing in school. And so life was super busy. Life was a bunch of fast food. We never cooked at home. Pizza and wings. I live in Buffalo, so it's pizza and wings like at least 4 or 5 nights a week. And I did fast food for everything else. We'd usually eat out once or twice on the weekend. But things are busy, and things are just going and going and going. And all of a sudden we get a phone call that my wife's mom had been sick for a while and she was really getting weak. We thought it was just like a cold flu kind of thing. And we took her to the doctor. And after they ran some tests, I mean, it wasn't even a few hours where she was diagnosed with leukemia. So her mom was kind of like a second mom to me because, we had grown up together and we had, always hanging out at each other's house. And she was a super, super special lady, super cool lady. So life goes from this fast pace, get the kids to games and practices and plays and all that to who's going to go sit with mom tonight in the cancer hospital. We have a big facility here called Roswell. It's pretty famous for cancer. So she was getting, the best of the best treatment. But I think as far as a switch going off, mine was more like a bunch of dominoes tipping over. They kind of built up momentum. And I think the first thing that happened is I found gratitude. And, I can remember the one I walked up into the hospital and she was struggling. I mean, they basically with leukemia, they like kill your entire immune system to give you these transfusions and stem cell treatments. So she was so sick and she was just trying to hang on to like live one more day. I can remember her open her eyes really, really slowly and she goes, "How's your knee?" And it crushed me. It crushed me because my legs were so screwed up and my knees were super bad, but I was walking. And that night I was going to walk out of the hospital and she wasn't. And there was 1,000 people behind those doors that would never come home. And there were people that had tumors that were getting their whole leg cut off. And, here's me being so selfish that, oh, my knees hurt. And they did. But I also found that there was a lot that I had to be thankful for that night. And after you spend some time with terminal people, you kind of get a different perspective on what your life looks like and the things that you should be thankful for. So as we're dealing with that and she's getting more sick and we got another phone call, my father went in for a checkup and he had a little cough. They thought he might have had pneumonia and they took a lung x-ray and he was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer. That had metastasized to his whole body. And my dad was my best friend in the entire world. We did everything together.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a bad time for sure. So my whole world got flipped upside down too, and I think the focus kind of looking back, like the focus kind of shifted from just being all about me and all what's wrong with me to my favorite people in the world are terminal, like just like that. And that definitely changed how I thought about my situation. My situation was nothing compared to what her mom and my dad were going through.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I think that was the first domino that kind of tipped over and showed me that I do have stuff to be thankful for. And so my mom, I still call her my mom. My wife's mom, she passed away. She had leukemia, and of course she was cured from that, and that turned into lymphoma, and then the lymphoma turned into a brain tumor, and she lost her battle. She fought so hard. She loved life. She was such an awesome lady. And then shortly after that, I'm sorry, my father actually passed away before her. He was given 6 months to live, and he made it 6 weeks to the day of his diagnosis. So they tried some experimental chemo, but I think that just made him worse.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was a rough time for sure. So we lost 2 of our favorite people in the world. And Heather used to, we're trying to get things back to normal, trying to get some sort of routine back and funerals are done and all that stuff that keeps you super busy. And then you kind of have this little like down, like that you really think, like you really, everything is so busy when you're doing the funeral brunches and all that stuff that things are so crazy and people from out of town. And then all of a sudden, like a few weeks later, there's that like silence, like, and you really start reflecting. And I remember it like this was another one of those dominoes. There were a lot of mornings I couldn't get my socks and shoes on myself. Like I couldn't get down there. And even if I could not manipulate the socks to put them on. And I'm a school teacher, so I had to get into work. And so Heather used to help me. And she wasn't being condescending or anything like that, but she would put my sock on and she kind of pat the side of my leg and like you would a little kid. And she's like, okay, you're all set. And I can remember like our eyes meeting, and I thought, holy crap, like I'm in my mid-30s and I can't dress myself. What is next year going to look like? Like if I don't die, this year, what is it going to be like next year? And I was really kind of okay with the fact that this was it. Like my buddy asked me one time, he goes, where's this going to end? And I did a lot of thinking about that. And I knew what was going to happen. I knew I could not stay on the same road. But at the same time, I couldn't see her having to go through all this funeral business again for me. Like this time it was going to be like
for you, yeah.
With 2 young kids, and like, what is she going to do? So,
right.
So literally, like what went in my head was not to get better, not to go play, not to do, and not even to be healthy. Like my goal was to just space out the funerals, like just get some time so she could get, back to normal and do her grieving before she had to worry about me. And that was kind of another domino that like I had to try something. Like I just watched my 2 favorite people in the world fight for every moment they could get, on earth. And I wasn't doing anything. So I had to at least try, if anything, just out of respect for them. So my idea was I started researching, found this bariatric surgery. And so that's what I was going to do. I called a company here locally in Buffalo. I got all the paperwork done. I went to the classes, all set, did, the phone interview, had all the paperwork filled out. And all I had to do was go to my doctor, and he was going to rubber stamp it, and off I'd go. And that's how it was going to be. And it was like this magic button that was going to fix everything. The problem was I went into the doctor that day, and my resting heart rate was 125 sitting in the chair.
Ooh.
Yeah, he was actually going to call an ambulance to come pick me up. He said, you're about ready to have a stroke. So again, I'm really good at manipulating, any addict is. And so I manipulated him to say, let's start bargaining. Let me get it down to 100. So laid on the exam table and just kind of breathed, and he'd go see another patient, come back in, check it. And that was actually the day that my blood pressure was 255 over 115. I was really sick.
I don't know why you didn't have a stroke.
Yeah, but like that was the norm. I could always feel my heartbeat in my ears and my eyes. In fact, I can remember putting the phone on my chest when I was laying down, and we'd be watching TV, and the phone would actually jump off my chest, and you could see air. And that was the norm. Like that was just like, it wasn't that I was doing anything strenuous. That was just me being me. Right. And so the bottom line is, the doctor said, I have signed off for every single patient that's wanted this. A lot of them are successful. And he said, but I can't sign off on yours. You're too sick. He was also worried about the amount of narcotics that I was on, that if I would even come out of surgery, I went home and
wow.
Yeah. I was a mess.
If that didn't like bottom you out, I don't know what would.
Yeah, but at the same time, again, I kept going back to, my dad and her mom would do anything to get a chance, to live one more day. And that kind of burrowed in my mind. And it's like, I still felt responsible to try something. And, I had been, very heavy for a long time. And I had like prayed for these giant miracles, like, like, Lord, give me new legs, or just help me get rid of all this weight. And like, it was stuff that was like totally unreachable, unattainable. But I can remember just asking for strength to change one little thing every day. And that's what I started to do. And I think I did what a lot of, like most Americans, I did I went to the Greek yogurt. I swapped out the red meats and the hamburger for like chicken and turkey. I went to like a low fat, like I would, instead of cheddar cheese, I would do the mozzarella cheese and things like this. And at 400 pounds, like, it works. Like, at 400 pounds, you can basically change anything in your diet and you're going to lose some weight.
Okay.
And, looking back, like right now, like I kind of like not disrespect all that, but like I realized how wrong I was. But at the same time, something happened that I think was a big piece of my puzzle. I was at least recognizing that what went into my mouth had an effect. And I had never had that before. Like, it sounds ridiculous. So like, I would never tell anyone to eat like chicken or fish or anything like that now. But looking back, I at least recognized that what went into my body was doing something to me. And I actually started logging my food, which is super out of character for me. To give you an idea, I grew up on a farm, hunted, fish. Like, my whole life was processing meat. I mean, even now, like, I'm an eighth of a mile away from butcher shop. I mean, that's what we had. I'm a very rural place. We raised our own animals. Like, there were weekends we would process 300 pounds of sausage in a weekend. Smoker, whole sausage kitchen. And this was my life. So I wasn't looking to do anything like that healthy. Like, I was just, instead of putting like red meat in the sausage, now I was making turkey sausage. That was basically my health move. But again, it's all kind of a process. And
it's a journey.
Look back, and I can see how that helped me now. Like, it seems ridiculous now, but I can see what was happening. So I was going on, and I was doing well.
What year was this?
So that would have probably been about 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
Because I've been 100% like plant-based for it'll be 6 years in January. So I started probably a year before that, like at least recognizing that food was something.
Right.
Food was doing something to me instead of just being this pleasure thing
that
helped me. Because the reality is that everything that went into my body was an escape from something. It didn't matter if it was the drugs, the alcohol, or the food. It was just that little escape from reality, even if it was for a minute,
right.
Just to get everything firing in my brain. And I think the food acts just like the opioids. Like, the more you have, the less sensitive you are to it. So you need more, you need a bigger quantity and a bigger dosage, just like the opioids. It's a really weird thing. I mean, it's something that I don't think a lot of people understand unless they lived in that world.
I mean, I call it my inner raccoon. My inner raccoon will come out, and I mean, it will be voracious. And like, my husband came home, I don't know, about a month, 2 months ago, and he had these little, at where his work is, they provide snacks. And so this was the healthy snack. So it had some chocolate in it and some nuts and whatever. So it was a little tiny bag. So he came home and he ripped open and he thought he was being nice. And he puts them in my hand and said, "Oh, I brought you a little treat, And I scarfed it down like a prisoner of war. And because I eat whole food plant-based, SOS, I mean, low caloric density, because I still have some more weight to lose. And he put that in my hand and I, scarfed it down and then immediately went down. You got any more? I mean, just like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it took several days for my brain to calm down.
Right. I was just going to say, then the whole process starts over and you got to go through the withdrawals and it's like the same process.
It is. It's horrible. And I'm like, and he's being so sweet, and just, bringing home a little treat, but he can have a little treat and walk away. Not me. I'm a food addict. I'm be the first to go, "Hi, I'm Gene Schumacher. I'm a food addict." but he doesn't understand it. He
Right.
doesn't get it. He doesn't know what
And
food
so my wife is the same way. She can take 4 or 5 cashews in the palm of her hand, eat them, and be done. But if we got cashews in the house, they are not going to be here tomorrow.
No,
Like that's
it's
just the
gone.
reality.
It's gone.
So if I'm going to go get cashews for a recipe, I go to the store, I get a half a cup, put them in my bag, and come home. It's ridiculous, but I'm the same way. Like I'm an addict, and the only thing that's changed for me is cashews and avocados are my new hamburgers. You know, it's
Right.
that same thing. You know, but I know it, and so I use that to leverage it. You know, I know just to stay away from it. Just like I would never buy a lottery ticket because in a year I'd lose my home, and I know how I think. You know.
Right? Yeah. Well, I'm not addictive in terms of gambling or anything, but it's just food. I mean, my whole family is. I mean, and it's crazy, and I'm the only one who's changed and who has reversed, their health destiny. And I still have to go when I go to my family events. I call them the carnivores, and I have to deal with that whole process because the inner raccoon comes out. Oh my God. It comes out like it's crazy. I mean, and you just really have to get yourself in a mindset to prepare yourself going in. It's like preparing yourself for war,
Right. And eat before you go. I know that sounds stupid, but that's one of my things. Like, I go full to parties because then I don't have to worry about it.
No, literally, I'm pulling in the driveway and I'm shoving carrots and potatoes in my mouth. So that when I walk in that door, I call it the Mammy effect from Gone with the Wind, because she wouldn't let Scarlett go to a party unless Scarlett had a full tray, so she wouldn't, eat like a field hand, that she would eat like a bird, so nobody would see that she ate real food, kind of thing. So that's it. I go to the party, and then I bring my food on top of it, knowing, because otherwise I will eat. I mean...
Right.
Because it's all these triggers and things from growing up and,
and tradition. And it's just, you eat certain things on certain holidays. Yeah, it's for real.
It is. And it's, go ahead.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is, so I went, like, I started swapping stuff out. And I think that's what most Americans do now. But then I was sitting on my couch one day watching Netflix, and I saw this title come up called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, and I had no clue. Like, I had no clue what it was. And I just knew the title. I'm like, dang, that sounds like me, So I watched it. Again, I didn't even, like, look at a trailer or anything. I just saw the title. I'm like, wonder what this is. And so obviously you've seen it before, but Joe Cross comes to the U.S. from Australia, spends 60 days traveling around with a juicer, basically consuming nothing but vegetable and fruit juice from this thing. And at the end of 60 days, he meets a whole bunch of really inspiring people. He sheds like 60 pounds, gets rid of virtually all his medicines, and thought of incurable autoimmune disease. Super inspiring. And by the end of it, by the time the credits rolled, I had already ordered a juicer off Amazon. Again, no, like, we didn't shop. Like, we bought pizza and wings. Like, we did not grocery shop. If we bought anything from the store, it will be like a frozen Totino's pizza rolls, or I love the jalapeno poppers, frozen toaster oven food, basically. And so the first of the year was coming, which will be 6 years in January. The first year was coming, and I had no clue what I was getting into. I say sometimes in my talks, I have this slide that, if Joe Cross would have put raccoon poop in there, that I would be eating raccoon poop today, because it didn't matter what was going into that machine.
Right.
But I wanted the results that he had, and I didn't care how he got them. Like, I didn't care what was in there. Like, I wanted what he had. The whole plant-based thing, and it's probably a good thing looking back that I had no clue what I was getting into. So, the first 3 days were absolutely hell.
Just like he showed in the movie. They had him in with his covers over his head going, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me.
Yeah, it was brutal. And because I had, I didn't know what I was doing. So, like I would go to the store and get this little bag of food, and bring it home, put it in the juicer, and I have like a quarter cup of juice, and I'm like, what? Is this machine broken? Like, what? I would run the pulp factor, and there must be more juice. It takes a lot of.
I know. I've juiced. Yep.
So, but again, like looking back, the one thing that kind of did was it got us into stores, and like you know, I would love to see people's face, me at like over 350 pounds, probably, you know, telling Heather, look at, they have kale on sale. Can you believe it? Like, I would love to see what people really thought, but I didn't know. Yeah, so we started shopping, and like we go to a restaurant, and I'd be like, well, where do you guys get your carrots from? And so they tell me a wholesale restaurant, wholesale. So we started buying carrots in 50-pound bales, you know, and learning how to shop for good, you know, produce that's local,
right,
in big quantities. And so that taught us to get into stores and to start finding stuff in all the farmers markets. And, you know, we have a ton of farms out here, so they grow a lot of really good produce.
So how long did you juice?
Well, so my goal was 30 days, and I did it. And, you know, the first 3 days were crazy. And then the fourth day, I kind of wasn't hungry. And by the fifth day, my hunger had just totally disappeared. But I will never forget, on the fifth day, I woke up in the same spot I fell asleep in. And it had been decades, like, that I actually slept through the night. And I told the story at least 200 times, and I get goosebumps every single time I tell it, because that was a big deal. That's why I wanted all those I just wanted to sleep. You know, people don't realize when you're, you know, New Year's Eve or whatever, and you go without sleeping for a night, you know, you're tired and grumpy the next day. When you go 2 nights, you're miserable the next day. 3 nights, you start getting weird. And by like 5 nights of not sleeping, like, it changes how you think. And to sleep through the night, it was the biggest deal, like, ever. And then as the days went on, you know, I'd forget to take a medicine. I was on Indocin, which is a very high-powered anti-inflammatory. I forget to take it. And of course, I didn't really forget to take painkillers, because those were my thing. But, you know, all through this thing, I could see, you know, pain was getting less, and inflammation was I was feeling better. I was losing a lot of weight, which I'm sure helped too, but I was getting energy. I was finding it easier to get out of bed without Heather having to, like, wake me up. So by the end of 30 days, like, I felt like $1,000,000. But at the same time, it's not sustainable. I can't live the rest of my life on juice. So because I watched that, then Netflix suggests things in your queue, and Forks Over Knives came up. And, you know, I'm so blessed. Like, I got to talk with every single person that's been involved with that film, from John Corey to Lee Fulkerson. You know, me and Brian Wendell just had an hour-and-a-half conversation just last week, like, because it was so important for me to tell them that Forks Over Knives did not just save my life. Like, it gave me a completely new one. And not just me, like, the effects are amazing. What's going on around me, you know? Heather's lost half of her body weight. I mean, she weighs, I can't say what she was. She lost like 90 pounds, like, doing this, like, and we didn't even really know she was, like, overweight, but, you know, she's, you know, we were couch potatoes. We just lived on the couch, and now she's out running, and she's competitively running races. She's podium a lot of races. So I can't thank the guys at Forks Over Knives enough. You know, I can't.
I know the whole movement. I mean, yeah, for me, same thing for me. I mean, this is why I do this, because it affected my life so much too. And it's been huge in my life. I mean, I'm down about almost at 100 pounds now. So
nice, congrats.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's huge. I mean, especially in my family, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, on both sides. I mean, I just went to a most recent family reunion at a wedding, and I'm like going, I really hope the chairs hold, you know, because, like, the people sitting on them, wow. Yeah, huge. Yeah. And everybody's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger in my family, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think, like, you know, looking back at the Forks Over Knives thing, when I got done with it, I had a very weird feeling when I finished watching that, and I was angry. Like I was so angry because I thought one of two things was going on. I just lost my two favorite people in the world from cancer. And here I got some doctor telling me that he can turn cancer on and off with animal protein.
I know.
And the bottom line is like this movie is total BS and it's a conspiracy or whatever, or people should go to jail. Like that was my two things. And I honestly didn't know how to process it all. So literally right then and there, I started the whole thing over. I rewatched it just to take it all in.
Oh, I probably have watched it 50 times, and each time I watch it, it's like, I didn't get that the first 50 times.
Right.
I mean, it's so information dense.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and so that kind of kicked me off to, well, I lived 30 days with no meat and dairy, so let's try whatever I'm putting in the juicer. Let me try to eat that. And then, I stumbled on to McDougall, which got me hooked on potatoes, which were always supposed to be so bad. So even now, like Heather should be the McDougall poster child. She's a little 100-pounder out there. She can knock down like 5 pounds of potatoes like no one's business. Like all she does is eat potatoes. And she loves it, she can eat potatoes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But so finding Dr. McDougall was a big one for me too, because I still had a 400-pound. I still eat a lot of volume of food, and I could do that with potatoes. Made me full. They made me feel good, and it stuck with me. And I was never a big salad guy. Now, since then, my eating's changed drastically. Potatoes are still a main food group for me, but we do so many greens, and I try to eat a pound of greens a day along with the potatoes and beans, and I love it. I love how I love the choices. Our food is so colorful. And,
I know.
I used to consume probably around 10,000 calories a day, and volume wise, I eat more food than I ever have in my life.
Right.
And I feel fantastic. I never feel gross after I eat. And I think we all have work to do. I think if a journey is worth traveling, it's never done. So I'm still tweaking, and I overeat grains. I love brown rice. I tend to overeat that, or I don't overeat potatoes. So I really need to stick to the potatoes and not the grains. But I'm still learning,
I think it's like, as you peel back the layers, of everything. Like for me, I learned I was super salt sensitive. Whoa. I mean, even just eating some processed food out at a restaurant will send me, will skyrocket my blood pressure like that. I mean, it's insane. I mean, even just a small amount of salt. And I remember we went to, my husband wanted, and I said, well, they've got some beans and rice. I could eat there. And as we're standing in line, I, got my app out and I'm looking at, I just wanted to see how much oil was in, the stuff, because they have the nutritional information. Oh my God. The amount of salt that I would have consumed in just that burrito would have been enough to send me to the hospital. I mean, it would have, for me, because I'm so salt sensitive. And I'm like, we can't eat here. I'm sorry, we cannot eat here. And I felt bad for him because my husband, he's reversed multiple sclerosis, through his plant-based journey. But, I mean, he never had, right? I mean, and because when he was diagnosed, they gave him a prescription for the medication for MS. And he's not a big pill person, so we didn't go and have the prescription filled. Plus, it was going to cost $60,000 a year for the medication. And he, on Monday, they pulled it off the market because it was killing people.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, wow. So, no, he's not on any medications. He never had a lot of weight to lose, but, I felt bad because, he wanted to eat out. And I'm like, I can't eat here. I can't. The salt in here. So I think as we start to peel back the layers of like an onion, you start to realize how different each person's body is,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Well, did the doctor support you in this change
100%.
to diet?
In fact, you know what? I'm gonna be teaching classes for him now. So he sends people to me now, which is it's like the coolest thing. So if you're gonna go get bariatric surgery from him, the rule is he won't talk to you till you come see me, and You have to do what I tell you to do for 60 days.
No way.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And so far, if people listen to me, they don't even qualify for the surgery anymore because it's not just being overweight. They have to have like 4 things, high blood pressure, cholesterol, overweight, and whatever. But yeah, so, and a lot of these people, like, they stick with it and they're doing talks, on diabetes. It's a really cool thing. And he's super supportive, and he's in the film that's coming out next year. He actually did a lot of work with the film crew to do an interview about me. And so I teach community ed classes on plant-based. We have a level 1 and a level 2. And I said, you know what we need, Doc, is we need to have these in your new building. He just put up a new facility, and he goes, how many patients do you want, and when do you want to start? So I'm going to do one more round of classes at my school district, and then we're going to move operations. And actually, that's partly why I'm going to the insurance company tomorrow. I want to get set up with the insurance company so people don't pay out of pocket, and they can actually use insurance money to pay for our classes. And we teach them how to cook, and we show them the basics, and everyone goes home with forks over. Everyone gets a forks over knives DVD, and then we take them through 6 weeks. Yeah, it's so fun.
Oh my God. Kudos to you. Wow. And you and your doctor, I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
You need
it's
help?
Fun. What's that?
You need help?
Do I need help? Things are getting crazy. So I'm a school teacher. I actually teach engineering. And every student, our school's not huge, but we have about 1,200 students in our high school. We're one of 3 high schools. And basically every student that goes to our high school watches Forks Over Knives for Health class. They hear a 40-minute presentation from me. Basically, I share my story and talk about plant-based nutrition. I do a lot of like plant-based athletes and stuff that they're kind of interested in. They don't really care about their cholesterol. And then the next day I come back and I do a talk on addiction, goal setting, self-esteem. And then we take questions and answers. So, and then I do a challenge for the teachers. And this year we had 40 faculty members do a 15-day plant-based challenge. Probably half of them actually went 15 days with no meat, dairy, or oil. And then I have little things. I kind of trick them because for 15 days, they watch video clips. So like I use a lot of Dr. Greger stuff. So for their check marks. For some of the people, it's easier for them to watch a Dr. Greger video than it is to not eat bacon, which I honestly could care less because I'm a realist. Like I realize not everyone's going to be plant-based, but if I can get them to watch why people don't know about plant-based, like why doesn't your doctor tell you about this? And if I can plant that education in there and get them to question things, then I did my job. So, but we get a 15-day challenge, and then the librarian took on to the challenge, and she was actually going to retire. She pulled her retirement. She felt so good after the 15 days. She's still going strong. And to top it off, we're going to have a plant-based section in our library now. So that's super special.
That is. I bet they'll dedicate it to you.
I don't know. She was asking for pictures because I'm in Runner's World, and oh man, we've been on Good Morning America, the Today Show, People Magazine. Like it's been a fun ride, and I didn't ask for any of it. I didn't want any of it. It's just kind of just happening to us, So it's so fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, do you from all your weight loss? Do you have still loose skin?
Sure.
Did your skin tighten up?
Well, I got rid of it. I took it back upstairs. I did a talk live on my page about skin, and I held up one of my shirts, and it's way out. And when you see that, I obviously don't have that much skin. I don't have. I was wearing a 52 pants, and I'm in 34s now, so I don't have 20 inches of skin hanging on me. So it does retract. I think it's different for everyone. Yes, I have a lot of loose skin. Every time I go to the airport, go through TSA, they got to pat me down because, it's hanging under my arms and, around my belly. And yeah, and I'll always have it. And I'm okay with it. I have no use for surgery or anything like that.
Okay.
Activity wise is probably the most, like, from the EDS standpoint. In fact,
Right.
Stanford University, actually, there's a DNA kit in the mail right now. They want some samples from a plant-based EDS patient, which I think is super exciting. That's the stuff that could change a lot, like, because they've been doing research for almost 20 years on this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want to test my inflammatory markers, my DNA expression on plants. So
Mm-hmm.
that's super exciting because they're supposed to be testing drugs. So I love it. But at any rate, what makes this story kind of remarkable is EDS people are not supposed to be running. I mean, I just did a 50-mile ultra in February. So to put it in perspective, my first half marathon I actually ran with a valid handicap parking pass. I mean, I have all the paperwork that we were applying for a scooter for me. So I couldn't even get to my truck. And, to be doing marathons and Ironman and ultras and, the
Well,
strength.
y'all are crazy. I mean, this running business. No, unless a bear's chasing me, I'm not running. No.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But we started walking, on my first walk, I couldn't make a mile and they had to come pick me up. I was almost in the emergency room, but something kept me going back to that trail and trying to walk more. And it was actually complete opposite of what the doctors told me to do my whole life. My joints, when I was 20 years old, I can remember a doctor getting out disability papers and saying that, we can't even give you a joint replacement. It was for my knee. And he said it would just be a waste of titanium. And like that stuck with me for 20 years. Like I remember him saying it would be a waste of titanium because the joint itself has to be held in place, whether it's artificial or not. And if, everything's stretchy. So like they would do an MRI on my knee and I don't have ACLs. Like they're gone. Like they're not there. There's little nubs where they used to be. I just had some MRIs on my feet and I'm missing a couple ligaments. Like they're absent. They're not there. And I think they sheared and then they just kind of dissolved. So it's a really weird thing. And at the same time, the doctor would tell me, don't, limit your movements. Don't use your body for leverage. You have limited steps left in your life. So don't use them. And now all of a sudden, I got some of the best doctors in the area working with me that are avid runners, just looking at my MRI thinking out, like, I don't know, like I just got back from Leadville. We ran a 16-mile race at 13,000 feet. And I did great. And I have EDS. I should not be walking on trails. So it's, we have been like so blessed to be able to do the stuff that we do, run these races. I love being out there. I love training. I just got back from a 30-mile bike ride with about 1,000 feet to climb today. And I just I love getting up in the morning. And
Now, are you in pain anymore?
no pain at all. Now, I do have some ankle issues that have been flaring up. So I actually have holes in the bones because I have fragments. Like I have fragmented bones in my ankles. And it's called an impingement. A lot of times it'll get stuck like in a hinge. And it hurts, but as soon as I stop running, it goes away. And I have been getting more inflammation. This is probably the first hiccup that I've really ever had to this extent. It was so bad I couldn't even run 3 miles anymore. But I mean, like I say, I ran 16 miles in Leadville and I didn't swell up and everything was fine. So the doctor thinks it's more like, I guess arthritis doesn't actually altogether go away. There'll always be a layer of it. And my body did a real good job of cleaning all the debris up, but it's still there. So like I have like potholes in my bones because they're always they never track where they should be. So there's a lot of wearing and stuff. Again, that's something that plant-based can't make me not dislocate, but it sure takes away all the stuff. So no pain per se. And if I am in pain, it's probably self-induced because I pushed too hard or I ran too fast.
Well, I was going to say, do you think the running is having an impact on your body? Maybe bicycling?
Absolutely.
Bicycling might be better choice, or swimming?
Yep, and I do. That's why I like Ironman. But I'm going to keep running because I can and I enjoy it. And
No,
you
that
know,
you're nuts there. I won't give you that one. No,
yeah,
no.
it's different for everyone. Walking is great too. I like hiking.
Yeah.
Um,
Now you're
but
talking.
it's one of those things that, like, looking back, like, I didn't know it at the time, but what happened is the inflammation left my body. The atrophy went away because I started moving. I felt good enough to get off the couch and actually want to do something. But then I started getting involved in the weight room, and I didn't know this. I was just going for goals, but I went from not being able to pick something off the ground. I have a 500-pound deadlift. In the weightlifting world, that is a very strong deadlift, 500 pounds. And I have EDS, like my knees wobble all over, but for some reason I can deadlift 500 pounds. But what's really happened is where my joints are weak and wobbly, my muscles have taken over. And as long as I'm not tired and I'm really thinking and concentrating, I can hold my joints together while I run, bike, swim, because my muscles are so strong now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, on your website, I love this. You have this section called the Excuse Smashers. This is amazing. I just thought this is great. How did you come up with that idea?
Well, so, like, there's a lot of people doing interviews out there and a lot of podcasts, and there's a ton of really good ones, and I'm not really good at that stuff. But what I want to do, like, because I'm a teacher, so my thing is, like, I want to give people tools. And so, like, I have my Fat Man's Toolbox, just a short list, a graphic list of, what films are my favorite films, my favorite books, my favorite cookbooks, my favorite, Facebook groups. And I like little short stuff that I can direct people to, because, I mean, I'm sure you get this too. I can't keep up with my emails and my messages. Like, I have to let them go. I think I probably have over 200 questions on my website right now that I can't get to them. Typically between 20 and 40 Facebook messages every day that I have to get to. And it gets tiring answering the same question. So what I try to do is streamline it, that if you have a question about protein, I can send you a Rich Rolls link to, and I kind of have this stuff organized to give people the tools that they need. But one of the things that keeps coming up is excuses. Like, everyone has an excuse, and it drives me nuts.
Well, what's your top 3 favorite?
My top, well, they're not my favorites, but the top 3 that everyone uses is they don't have time, they don't have money, and they can't give up meat. Like, those are, and it's ridiculous. So I have a guy that I actually didn't publish this one yet, but I have a guy that his business was a barbecue, like one of the biggest barbecue joints in Detroit. And if anybody liked meat, it was this guy. That was his livelihood. So what I try to do is find people that have overcome these challenges, or what they call excuses. And then, like, if you're going to give me that excuse, like Nalita, I don't know, do you know Nalita Bissell?
Yeah.
She's in that film with us too. She has a family of 5. Her husband's legally blind. Her 3 children are legally blind. 2 of them have autism, and one of them is developmentally delayed. So,
wow.
If anyone doesn't have, and she works full time, she volunteers on all the blind associations. This lady is, like, just being around here makes your life better. Like, she's the most beautiful person in the world. The whole family it's amazing. Like, they are miracles. And to watch her, we got to spend some time with her for the film, and then we went back down to visit with them. She's in Boston. You should have her on your show, by the way. She's awesome. But when someone says I don't have time, and I give them Nalita's Excuse Smasher, and they're like, yeah, I have plenty of time. Because if Nalita can do it, anybody can do it, Yeah. So the idea of Excuse Smashers is I try to keep it really short, like 10 minutes, that people won't get bored, and just take excuses away from people.
I love it. I love it. So give us a day in the life of Tim Kaufman. What do you eat?
I eat food. So
yeah.
Again, like, it's different all the time. I've been playing around for the past couple months with, I guess the proper name is not intermittent fasting, but most people will call it that. So I've been trying to shrink that window down. So I don't really eat so much breakfast per se. Like, my breakfast is more lunch-ish. because most of the time I'm working out in the morning anyway. So I get up at 4:50 every morning, whatever, even on the weekends, summer vacation. My clock in my head goes off at 4:50 and I'm up out of bed. Then usually I either go for a swim or I lift weights. Then I would go teach, and then about noon or so I would have lunch, which would be, I don't know, sometimes it's like a bowl of fruit with some oats sprinkled on it. Most of the time it's potato because I'm lazy. I literally keep a bag of potatoes in my drawer at my desk and I just nuke them and eat them. Like, food isn't that fancy. It can be. I mean, we have people over, it gets real fancy, but most of the time it's just a potato and go. Like, my life is too good to like stop and make these huge meals. So I come home and then Heather usually wants potatoes, but we do a lot of greens. What I do is most of my food sits on a bed of greens. So whatever that looks like. And it sounds, some people aren't into this, but I chop the greens fine because I don't like have time to eat all those big leaves. So usually we chop them up. So typically for dinner, we'll take 2 heads of romaine and then a 1 pound box of like mixed greens that are pre-washed. I chop them up with my Yulu knife. I'll probably put some, onion, carrot, sometimes some shredded red cabbage, whatever we have in the house. And then if we're doing quinoa or rice or whatever that is, that just will go on top of the greens or even potatoes. And that's dinner. Like, we keep it really simple. Heather likes banana whip. She's addicted to, well, they call it nice cream, but basically frozen bananas in the Vitamix.
So give me some of your personal faves, dishes that you just can't live without.
So this one's super weird, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's a childhood thing because my mother always made this like mushroom, like green bean casserole with the crunchy onions on top.
Oh yeah, that was classic Thanksgiving fare.
Yeah, and so mine are a little bit more healthy than hers were, I'm sure, but I just do like frozen, like we'll do like 2 pounds of frozen. I like the extra fine green beans, and I just boil them up, and then in a no-stick pan, I'll saute like a couple of Vidalia onions.
Do you caramelize them and get them all nice?
Yeah, and some like, well, I did get crazy for Easter. I actually put some onions in the air fryer to top.
Yeah.
Which was really good, but you could fill that whole basket up, and when you're done, you got like a little palm full. So you had to make a lot. But anyway, so it's just portobello mushrooms, onions, and then I'll toss them in a big stainless steel mixing bowl with some nutritional yeast and maybe a shot or 2 of liquid aminos. And like, I don't know, it's weird. I could live on that every day. Heather's things, potatoes. Like, it doesn't matter what they are. She could eat potatoes every day. She loves the air fryer.
That's a game changer. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Instapot. Basically, you put anything in Instapot and it comes out tasting like good food. Whatever that looks like. So, we cook all our rices, lentils. We just did lentils last night in there. And I mix it up too. I've been mixing grains a little bit. Like I'll do like some lentils and then some brown rice because I told you I have a problem overeating rice, so I try to mix it. And then the other thing you do, calorie density is key. And in my opinion, that's like the coolest thing about plant-based. Like, no matter what road you look down for health, or even, I hate even mentioning weight loss, because if people need to get the weight loss out of their heads, they need to get healthy. And the weight loss is a side effect of health. But that's a whole nother show.
Right.
But the thing is, no matter what you choose, like if you want an inflammatory diet, it's going to be plant-based. If you want a calorically dilute diet, like if you're a volume eater and you want, you just look at all the foods that are out there, you're going to come back to plant-based. As far as allergies and antibiotics and all this kind of stuff. Like, whatever you want for the optimal healthy diet, even if you don't want to admit it, it's all going to come back to plant-based. Right? It's kind of a crazy thing. But I believe that for weight loss, calorie density is the magic pill. And I'm a volume eater. You don't get 400 pounds by not eating a lot of volume. So when I eat, I keep in mind the cauliflower, the greens. I've come a long ways with eating greens. All the food that I can get into my belly first, that's calorie dilute. That's what I go for first. And then instead of eating my rice first, I will have some greens, but they're after I eat 1.5 pounds of cauliflower or 3 potatoes. So it's kind of, you got to kind of keep the whole calorie density thing in mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what advice can you give for those of us who are just starting out plant-based?
So the biggest thing and I think it has to do with many facets of this, but I think people get overwhelmed when they look into the future. And it's another, like, I feel like I'm selling plant-based diet, and I am, because it saved my life. But, the thing is, whether someone has 200 pounds to lose, 100 pounds to lose, 20 pounds to lose, or no pounds to lose, the process is identical. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter, how much money you have, and none of that stuff matters. The process is the same, about eliminating, and maybe it's not even the way to look at eliminating animal products, although you have to do that, but it's what you add into your plate. Like, and again, going back to the calorie density, instead of eliminating stuff, eat 3 potatoes, 2 pounds of cauliflower, and a pound of carrots, and then tell me how much room you have left to eat junk. So it's probably a good life concept to fill yourself with good stuff, and your head too, and there's not enough room for the bad stuff to get in. So this is not like a diet of taking stuff away. We eat the best food ever. But I'm getting away from the question. But so, for advice for someone, since the process is the same, and it's basically just a matter of time till your body catches up to where it needs to be healthy, instead of looking at how much you have to go or looking at next year, the only decision that you have to make is the next thing that goes into your mouth. People get so overwhelmed about, how am I going to lose 30 pounds? Or how am I going to lose? You don't have to worry about that. Just get to the next plate of food. Make the next choice. Choose the apple over the Snickers bar. That's the only thing you need to worry about, is that next choice. Because in my mind, the people that I've worked with, results are what spur the movement. So when you see results, how good you feel about letting the Snickers bar go compared to the apple, you will remember that. And next time you'll want the apple because you want to feel that feeling. So I think the best advice I can give people is, don't look into the future. Look at the next thing you put in your mouth. And another thing, this sounds a little weird, but another thing is, like, I take this stuff serious. And I feel like once people know about plant-based and they have the information, I think it's not a choice anymore. It's not a choice, or I like what this tastes like. It's our responsibility. It's my responsibility as a husband and as a father to be the best I can be for my family. And if that means eating broccoli instead of prime rib, that's my job, right? And people get mad at this, but I'm not a fan of motivation. I'm not a fan of inspiration. This stuff is all emotional. It's all temporary. And we tend to use motivation for only the things that we don't care about. Like, it's so weird. Like imagine you tell your kid, go do homework. And they say, well, I'm just not feeling it today. Can you show me a before and after picture so I feel motivated to do it? And it doesn't fly, right? When the mortgage company calls, you can't say to them, I was feeling it last month to pay that bill, but I'm not motivated. I lost interest in this. You can't do that. So the things in life that we're passionate about, we don't need to be motivated. I don't need to be motivated to be faithful to my wife. Right? So why do we have to be motivated to stay plant-based when we know it's the optimal health and it's the best thing we can do for ourselves, and in turn our family, and the environment and the animals, and the list goes on.
Right. Did your kids transfer into plant-based?
So my kids are older. So my son is 24 and he does not live with us. But ironically, and this is cool, this is an excuse masher actually, he's 100% plant-based. And a lot of that has to do with finances, right? Like we got him an Instapot, and it's super cheap to get some dry beans and rice and potatoes. And he lives in like an apartment, and he can live out of his Instapot. And it just happens to be the cheapest way he can eat. But he is 100% plant based. Now, my daughter is probably 90. She does live at home. She's 21. She's in school, but she commutes. So she's 95% plant based, but she does a lot of the processed, like vegan food,
Yeah.
which studies show that's almost as bad as a SAD minus the cholesterol. But that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, so my advice for people is worry about the next thing you put in your mouth. Don't look out into the future, and understand that you're not always going to be motivated, but it's okay. Like we're not motivated to change baby diapers, right? But we do it because it's our job. So do this because it's your job. And lastly, this is really weird, but you got to look in the mirror and realize that you are worth changing for.
Yeah, it's
You know?
true.
So those are my three things.
Well, Tim, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for being here today.
And thank you for having me. And thank you for all you do, for real. Like it's super encouraging.
Thank you.
Yeah. So have a great night.